How do we
Yeah.
actually stick to the line items when they live in this Excel spreadsheet on the desktop when I'm out in the wild with my debit card? Your finances touches everything. And it is so true. And I really did feel a sense of peace in myself when we started really having visibility and an organized approach with the right tools.
It gives you the freedom and the guilt-free opportunity to spend, which is so powerful that I didn't expect it was going to change my behavior. I truly believe in this product, and I know it's going to be helpful for a lot of people out there. Welcome to CoastFI Couple, podcast where love meets financial independence. I'm Matt.
And I'm Yana. Join us every other week as we dive into the world of CoastFI and share smart money tips for couples.
We're going to be talking all about how to strengthen your bond and your relationship and bring you closer to financial independence.
One episode at a time. All right, welcome back to CoastFI Couple. Today we're going to be talking about Qube Money.
Yes.
We're going to get into it.
Yeah. So last week I was actually at a CampFi event where I was able to present on how we created what we dub an anxiety-free budget. And so today we're going to walk through some of those notes and what we've built, and it should be fun. Yeah,
I'm really excited. I know that you were looking forward to that presentation, and building it out was really fun too. And I'm excited to talk to how we have actually incorporated Qube into the ecosystem of our finances, because I think that that's kind of a missing puzzle piece. When you talk about Qube Money, obviously there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate any kind of budgeting app or new bank or new system, but I want to speak to how we've made it work for us.
yeah.
And there's one point that you made in your presentation about how people automate their savings. Why can't you automate your expenses? And that's essentially exactly what we've done. We've automated it.
Yeah. No, I that's exactly right. So when I talk in the FI world about budgeting, everyone has a different way of doing it. But in my experience, the kind of tried and true way for most people is to pull out, like essentially log in all your bank accounts, log in all your credit cards information, do an export to Excel, pretty it up with some fancy schmancy pivot tables and graphs,
Right.
and then go through step by step every category. And we did that I actually calculated it. We did that for about 6 years together. And
Was it 6 years?
It was 6 years we did that, but that was when you and I got together. I've been doing it since I started working, like in a teens.
That's
time.
true. I remember when we merged our finances, you already had I wouldn't say it was an in-depth spreadsheet, but it was an Excel spreadsheet that you were using. And things just got more and more complicated over time. I had a small student loan that I had to have paid off. We bought a house. We had another baby. So things just over time got more and more complex. And I remember at one point, we actually started using a different Excel template that was much more complicated, and we learned it together. You've always been the Excel whiz, though. So you were always the one in the driver's seat when it came to putting the numbers in and making the calculations. And obviously we would sit down and we would do it together and you would explain things to me, but I'm kind of in the passenger seat, or maybe even in the metaphorical back seat, because there was a lot to the way that the spreadsheet was built out that I wasn't a part of.
Yeah.
And so there was, not only is it time consuming, but there was a little bit of a disconnect for me in how the budget was being managed, because I wasn't the one physically putting in the numbers and having that connection to it.
Yeah. And it created, like you said, it created a disconnect because it took a lot of time to do it that way. And we would spend hours every month combing through all the categories, mapping them out. And we'd sometimes often overspend in some categories, and other times we'd be on the right track. And so we would be sitting together for a long time, planning out the next month as well. But there was always this sense of, you can't see what you're actually doing.
How do we stick to the budget that we built? How do we actually stick to the line items when they live in this Excel spreadsheet on the desktop when I'm out in the wild with my debit card? And I remember when you brought Qube Money up, we'd kind of gone through an evolution of, hey, we're doing our budget on the spreadsheet to, hey, we need to really rethink our savings rate. Hey, we have FIRE as an option. Let's really kick things into high gear. And I think when we were talking about FIRE, that's when we both knew that we really needed to have the right tools to make this work. We had the income and we were able to scrimp and save.
Mm.
It wasn't that we had an aversion to living frugally because we already were. It was the actual applicability of being able to do it logistically. We needed the tools.
Yeah, there's definitely a split in the personal finance community of people who, they feel like they can out earn their expenses to a certain degree where they don't have to worry about budgeting. And we've talked about this before, right? Like if you have a big shovel, then the urgency to budget and do it correctly kind of falls away.
Right.
But
then you have lifestyle creep.
Exactly. Then you have lifestyle creep. And we figured out that if you're able to identify, and we go back simple, like when we started our journey, it was Dave Ramsey, an envelope system. So we put cash in envelopes and we labeled them groceries and date night. Mm-hmm. And we lived off of that. And we did that for about 6 months or so, and it worked. It was extremely effective, but it was also extremely, annoying.
Time consuming.
It was time consuming, but it was also just annoying carrying cash envelopes.
And it wasn't really sustainable.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we did, I forgot where I was going with this, but what we did is, the analogy back to people being able to overspend or oversave their expenses. So if you have a huge shovel and you are feeling like you don't need to budget, what we are trying to emphasize is that everybody should budget because you can cut back on all the fat or the waste that essentially can happen. So I was talking to a crowd this past week and, I used this kind of like Jenga tower analogy, and you essentially can have a very clean foundation with less blocks that still allows you to get to your goals, or you can have just a mountain of blocks that
and you have more blocks.
You have more blocks, more money to not have to worry or think about it.
But if they're messy and all over the place, like, you might have more blocks, but you're not necessarily reaching your financial goals faster than someone who's organized.
Actually, it slows you down. And if you do that consistently over time, you don't know if you've reached your goal. You assume that you do, and you have all of this kind of miscellaneous mess, and it ends up being a sense of stress because you don't know if you can leave your job. You haven't done the effort to comb through your expenses.
I do think financial stress is incredibly pervasive in a way that a lot of people maybe don't really understand.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of financial gurus out there will say your finances touches everything. And it is so true. And I really did feel a sense of peace in myself when we started really having visibility and an organized approach with the right tools when it came to our finances. We've always been aligned, but that's not the same. Us being aligned is not the same as us being organized together.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when we did start getting organized, and because we did want to try and increase our savings rate, it became more important for us to control the dollars that we did have. And so best case scenario would be a cash envelope system until we found Qube Money.
Right.
And that kind of changed everything. And so this is, to everyone listening, this is a candid discussion about how we use Qube Money and how it gave us the confidence to actually CoastFI.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about how we first started using Qube Money?
Yeah, for sure. So I know that you found Qube Money at the 2020 FinCon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was remote. Because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so around that time, you presented Qube Money as an option for us as a tool. I think we had looked at YNAB and I was completely overwhelmed at the idea of YNAB. I do think that YNAB is probably a really great tool for someone who genuinely likes to do it and be in there and do the line items. But for me, especially at the time, it was just not something I was going to spend time doing.
Yeah, well, because we were so used to one person being in
Doing it.
Excel
Right.
and the other person, offering input. And then it would create this kind of sense of like, can I spend? Can I go out to dinner with friends?
Right.
And it became this kind of asking
Me
for
asking
permission
you or
thing,
you validating what the budget was. Yes.
which was first off, I think just unhealthy
Yes.
communication
Totally
for
agree.
our relationship.
Mhm.
And I think inevitably it kind of could lead to some animosity on both ends.
I think a little bit of
Right.
resentment because you have to be the one to carry the burden of knowing the budget deeply. And I also carry resentment in those situations because I have to ask, quote unquote, for permission to spend money that I'm also earning.
Well, exactly.
So it just creates a sort of
Unhealthy communication.
unhealthy dynamic,
Yeah.
even though we were communicating positively and even though we were actively trying to be on the same page. But when we looked at YNAB, I think that I just was
Shut
completely
down.
overwhelmed. Right.
Yeah, understandably so.
So when you brought Qube Money to the table as an option for us to maybe try, I remember feeling a little frustrated, like, oh, here we go. I've got to, go try this budgeting app. It's going to be a lift. And I'm the one who's buying the groceries and doing the majority of the spending. So it would make sense that I'm the one that uses it first to see if it's going to work.
Yeah.
And within even just a few weeks of using it, I realized immediately it was simple. It was a way that we could have real-time accountability and communication around what line items we still had. I had complete flexibility. I loved it immediately.
Mhm.
And that was before we were even using some of the best features. And so once Matt knew that I was going to use it and use it consistently, we started using it together as a family.
Yeah. 'Cause
And
if you weren't going to use it, then, I wasn't going to hop on board either. So
Right.
it at the time I was traveling and not really being the one buying groceries and stuff. And so it was important that you had buy-in.
right.
And because it's not, having to recategorize transactions or label things or be in an Excel spreadsheet or any type of dashboard, it was very easy to just live off of it.
hmm
And it kind of got you excited about it. It was
Absolutely. I
fun.
felt like
Yeah.
I had a real understanding of our budget for the first time in a real way. And I just loved how flexible it was. I loved that I didn't have to go back after the fact and categorize all of our spend like we had to do with Excel or like we would have to do with some of those other budgeting apps, because I just didn't want to have to go back and go through all of our spend for the month before we could start building out the next month. I had a real aversion to that.
Yeah.
And what's really great about how we've set up Qube Money in the ecosystem of our finances, we have all of our income coming into our main account, which we have through Ally because they have a really good high yield savings.
Yeah, this is a good. So let's take a second to breathe on it. For a
Okay,
second.
okay.
So, in essence, for those listening, because I know you and I are so familiar with this, right?
Yes,
Qube
true.
Money itself is a budgeting tool
Yes.
that is linked to a debit card, and so
And it has a bank.
exactly.
It's
so
an actual
there's
bank.
an underlying bank, and so you transfer the money that you agree on spending with your partner, right? So we sat down and we did a budget. We said, hey, what do we want to spend on groceries this month?
Yeah.
What do we want to do for date night? What do we want the kids, entertainment things to be?
What are our monthly expenses?
Yeah, let's map that out. And it wasn't necessarily, it didn't have to necessarily be perfect. We started with what was an estimate guess,
Yes.
right? And we added
we had the data to support
we had
it.
data from
Yeah.
Excel. So we were pretty in the know on what we were spending, but we added a little bit buffer because we didn't know how this was going to go. And then we transfer that lump sum to Qube Money.
Yes.
And then what Qube Money does is it overlays this software that allows you to put all of those budgets essentially in envelopes. And so I had this really great conversation with somebody recently. It's like if you take the money for groceries and you open the envelope and you put cash in the envelope and you close the envelope, and then you go to the store, the app allows you to press on that envelope or that cube and then spend from it. And then the envelope closes. And you always have visibility to what's left in that envelope. Both partners do.
Mm-hmm.
And so you never are left wondering, how much do I have left
for groceries? Yeah.
And the beauty of this is that when you leave the grocery store, you are done. You've already reconciled the budget. It's automatically done and you never have to think about it.
Right.
And so for us, once we uploaded that budget and transferred the money, and it automatically fills those buckets based off of the criteria that we list.
Well, you have to set up some of those automatic allocations, which does take a little bit of time, but I actually really enjoyed that part.
Well, you only do it once.
You do it one time, and then you can adjust it later if you want.
Exactly.
But you transfer your the amount that you want for your expenses that month. We do it monthly into the bank that is FDI insured,
FDIC
insured. Sorry, into the bank behind Qube, and then Qube overlays it, and it basically just organizes it all for you in real time, which is just perfect. Do you remember when we had 6 different checking accounts so we could have a bunch of different debit cards to try and manage, okay, this is going to be our grocery card and this is going to be our date night card, and because we were trying to bucket our money in this way. And what's so wonderful about Qube is we don't have to carry 6 or 7 or 18 different cards. It's one card with all of the categories attached to it, and we open each one of those categories through the app in real time to make those expenses.
Yeah.
And there is a little bit of a habit that you have to get into when you first start using it, because you have to be able to open it in the app. There's a little bit of work on it. You can do the Qube list transactions, which for a while we used.
We tried it. So what that is essentially is essentially you can default to apps like YNAB.
Yes.
So for example, if you're familiar with other budgeting apps that categorize transactions after the fact, Qube Money does allow you to do that. But where it really shines is when you turn that Qube list feature off, and it essentially, you cannot spend until you pick the category that you're spending from, which is the whole magic of the concept.
It's great.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that for Qube list, we do use it from time to time. Like if we're traveling and maybe we don't have Wi-Fi, or if I know I'm going to a store that every time I go to this one particular store for whatever reason, like my Wi-Fi is poor, in those instances, I will either open up my specific spending cube that I know I'm going to use before I go, or if we're traveling somewhere where I'm not sure I'm going to have great Wi-Fi, like if we're camping or something, we can turn on the Qube list feature for like $50 or $100 or something. But we will have to go back later and categorize any of the transactions that were spent through the Qube list feature to make sure that they are allocated to the right cube, so the budget is reflected.
Which is what every other budgeting software does.
But I'm glad that it has both, especially for people who are more used to maybe need that transitional time, because I did use that, especially in the beginning, but then after the first, few months, we turned it off, and we very rarely use that now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I guess you're right. It's nice to have the flexibility. Right. Like I get real excited about having the control and having the real time, updates and visibility to all of those categories. So I can see the value of kind of the training wheels that this thing offers with having a Qube list button to turn it on. But no, I love not having that.
It's so funny every once in a while when I do still use the Qube list feature. And I mean, it's like once every 3 to 6 months. Within a day or two, Matt will say, we have a Qube list something. Did you use a Qube? And I'm like, yes, I use it because and we still like kind of go back and forth.
Because when it's off,
so
it's like you have no control.
Right.
So you need to turn, you need to turn that feature off to be able to have full control. So yeah, I get a little nervous about it because it just goes back to like a credit card, right? Where you have unlimited spending opportunities and it allows you to overspend from your budget. So using Qube as its full potential is where it really shines.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I love that the way that we've set up Qube with our other accounts, our money flows into Ally, our income goes into Ally. We have an automatic transfer monthly at the top of the month that goes to Qube, which covers our expenses. Our categories are already built out. Our auto allocation is already built out in the Qube app. So when the money goes from Ally to Qube, Qube automatically allocates it. And that's the card that we're using to spend.
Yes.
Anything that's left over in Ally after our expenses are earmarked and sent over to Qube, that lives in our high yield savings account for our emergency fund.
Yeah.
And then we also have, of course, our Vanguard set up. So that way, if we want to save a little bit more into our long-term investments, that would go from Ally to Vanguard then at that point. So it's a really great, and I know that you have a slide
It's a diagram that we
about
create, like a
with a
waterfall
little,
of
yeah,
sense.
with a
Yeah.
little diagram of like this, everything comes into Ally and then it goes into Qube or it goes into
Well,
Vanguard.
the whole point was to automate it,
Yes.
right? So we have like any income or direct deposit from employers or things that we make. You're right. It goes into Ally first. We have a set amount that we want for our emergency fund, and anything in excess of that is split out. And so
Right.
while we were in our accumulation phase,
Yeah.
we were contributing directly to Vanguard, 401k and Roth IRA accounts automatically because we set that up just through the bank. Like the contributions are automatic. And then to your point, we also had an automatic contribution once or twice a month to Qube. And that was it.
Right.
That was it. We no longer had the worry or the stress of overspending at all.
I never had to think of that then again about, am I overspending out of our checking account? And is that going to get in the way of the number that we want to continue to save into our high yield savings account? It was just too easy to overspend because all the money was just in one big bucket.
Yeah.
And now that I have this one Qube card that encompasses all of the buckets that I want to spend from, I never have to worry if I'm spending from this card this month. It's not going to touch any of my savings accounts in Ally because it's literally a different bank.
Yeah.
I'm not going to accidentally dip into an emergency fund. We made a purposeful decision to only use Qube for our swiping expenses. But we also have sinking funds in the Qube app for healthcare, for eFunds, so that we're trying to really use it to encompass as much as possible.
Exactly. So let's talk about that for a moment. So Qube Money itself breaks the categories into three different ones. You've got the first one being spending, which is what you and I use every day for any variable spending we have. Like we said, groceries and date nights and all that stuff that we gas. And then the second Qube is the bill Qube, which is awesome. And we'll talk about that. And then the third one is the Goal Qube. And we use the Goal Qube for like short-term goals,
right?
Things that, like trips and things that we're planning for Christmas,
Halloween.
Yeah. And so we can automate, call it $50 a month or something to these Goal Qubes. And we set it up and we forget it. It's out of sight. It's a whole different, segment of that app and screen that we don't typically look at.
Right. It's not,
until we're ready to spend from it.
It's not cluttering up our regular daily spend. I don't have visibility into our travel Qube every day, which if I did, it would be tempted to be like, oh my gosh, we have XYZ amount in there and we don't have any plans to travel. And so I could just move a little bit into this, So even though that flexibility still exists within the tool, I love that it is still separated into its own little section. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, because a couple of months go by, you're not thinking about it. And then you look at that travel Qube and it's like, oh, wow, I got $1,000 in there.
Right. Or like with Christmas, which is my favorite way that we use the Goal Qubes. We save a little bit every month towards our Christmas fund, our Goal Qube within Qube Money. And then come late October, November, Black Friday, we'll go in there and we'll be like, okay, we have XYZ amount to spend and it's more than what we need for Christmas. We make our lists, we do our purchases, and we're not stressing about how are we going to pay for Christmas this year.
Yeah,
we're not putting anything on a credit card. We're not dipping it into an emergency fund because, our kid asked for some expensive gift that we want to be able to give them for Christmas. We don't have to worry about it. It's made buying thoughtful, more expensive items stress-free.
Yeah, you can create unlimited sinking funds, to your point. And you just label them. And so, kids camps was another one, right? Like we save like $50 a month or something to kids camps. And so when summer comes around, we're not, trying to pull money out of emergency fund or anything. We just allocate it. And then when we see a deal or when we see something that, we can easily just open that Qube, spend it and jump on it and not have to stress it.
Right.
So that stress-free spending is extremely helpful.
Like I have another example. We recently had an opportunity to sign our youngest up for an after-school golf program. It was a really good price and it wasn't something that we were really planning on doing, but because we have the kids camps Goal Qube already set up, we already had plenty of money in there. Just like, okay, we'll go ahead and do it. And it's not coming out of our other expenses. It's not eating into any of our other savings. Right. It's being very purposeful and conscientious and realistic about what your spend is in a year or 2 or 3 and building a budget around that and then living that budget in Qube.
Yeah, I love this because we're now prioritizing what we find valuable.
Yes.
And this is what helped me because I'm naturally not a spender. And we've talked about this on the show. Like I'm typically the nerd of the relationship. That's changed. But Qube Money allowed me to become more of a free spirit and not be so, white knuckling it, because it allowed me to say, hey, I want to prioritize kids camps because I want them to do something that's enjoyable and helps them learn. I want to prioritize date nights with you, right? Because in the past, it was always this feeling of like, ooh, it's a pretty pricey meal there.
I don't know if we got it. I'm not sure if we got it.
Well, we got it, but like we're pulling from other things. Like we could be doing that for the trip that we want to take the kids on or something. Right. So it was just...
We weren't sure what the opportunity cost was every time.
Very good point. Yeah, exactly. So it was always like, well, I don't want to go and spend on a nice lavish dinner because that money could be used for something else. But no, because we've prioritized that as part of our relationship. Mm-hmm. So we have a date night Qube that at any moment, because we're putting money into it every month, if it's high enough, I just glance at it and be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to surprise you with, going out to a nice restaurant.
Matt's actually going to surprise me with going out to a nice restaurant right after this episode.
That's true. That's true. And you know what? We've got the Qube for it. So I'm not at all stressed about it. And it's great. And another, example that I like to use is I hate shopping for myself. Hate it because it's spending money on things I don't think I need. But by creating a clothing Qube, I can now go and buy myself, a sweater or something and not have the guilt or the second guessing that is used for something else and vice versa, right? Like it gives you the freedom and the guilt-free opportunity to spend, which is so powerful that I didn't expect it was going to change my behavior, but it really did.
I do feel like you've totally relaxed a little bit and you're able to enjoy the way we spend our money together. I think because we have built out this communication using this tool and because you've seen me be much more involved in the way the budget is being built and managing the budget. I love it. I love Qube. I think I've said this before. It's gamified budgeting and it's cute. It is. The cubes are cute and it's simple and I just really love it.
It's amazing to me that it's not more well known. And that's why we're making this show about it, because it is still a relatively newcomer to the budgeting, space, and it gets lost in the noise with all these other apps that are out there now.
Because they've been out there longer, and there's more users using those apps, and there's great features to some of those apps, but none of those apps update your budget in real time.
Yeah, you can't walk into a grocery store, press one single button, spend from your card, and walk out and have it already be automated.
Yeah.
That's what Qube does.
Right.
It allows you to live and not worry about money. And so I've got three things. You ready?
Okay, yes.
All right. So we identified what makes a good budget.
Yes.
Right? Because we've been on this journey for over 10 years now. We've tried the YNABs, we tried the
Excel
spreadsheets, we tried the envelope system. So what makes a good budget? Number one, it has to relieve stress for both of us.
Yes.
Right? Like you don't have to worry about worrying if you're overspending. I don't have to worry about, and I get incentivized to spend because, I don't like to. So it gives us that freedom and it relieves the stress.
But we still have the detail.
Oh yeah, we have complete control, which is awesome. That's part of it. So the second thing is it has to be easy to automate, right? Because I don't want to be spending time, in a spreadsheet trying to recategorize something.
I don't want to trick myself into calling budgeting nights a date night so that way we can complete this adult task that we have to complete together.
Yeah. And you mentioned putting on Nora Jones in the background, making like a, cheese platter.
We did it.
Hours.
I'll still do it if I have to. We don't have to.
We don't have to do that anymore. I mean, honestly, because of Qube, we haven't had to create a budget date night. It's just,
we just touch base.
It's automated and we just sit and enjoy it. And we just check and see, can I go out to eat tonight? Oh, yes or no. And it's like, okay, well, or if you want to, we have to pull from a different Qube. And so we can still do it, but we're not pulling extra money out of those accounts. It just makes it easy. And then the last one. So first one is relieve stress. Second is be easy to automate. And third one is provide real-time visibility.
Yes.
That's been the game changer.
And I think that real-time visibility has really changed the way that we talk about our budgets now. It's just a quick touch base because we're on the same page. And we'll maybe make an adjustment if we need to. Or, hey, I really want to go do this thing with friends and it's going to cost this much. Which cube do you think I should use for that? It's more about like, which cube should we categorize this?
Mm-hmm.
And it's less about what's going into those cubes or how often we're spending. We're aligned.
Yeah.
And so we're not having these long conversations anymore. They're more so touch-based conversations. And the finance talks that we are having now with each other are less about the details of our budget and more about the details of our build out beyond our budget, which that is what Qube Money helped me unlock. That is really the magic of Qube, is it helps you automate that piece so you can start using your brain space to build other things.
Yeah. You're just doing the exciting part, the fun part.
Just the fun part.
Yeah. Really good point.
You know that part in Bambi when Thumper is eating the clovers and he's eating just the top of the clover? That's what I think about when I think about Qube.
I've never heard that before. Okay.
That's how I feel.
What an analogy. I love that. All right. Interesting. All right. So I've got one more point here, and then we'll break down what is in each of our cubes, because I think that might be helpful for the audience to know.
Yes.
I've written a couple bullets here of why Qube Money gave us the confidence to actually CoastFI.
Yes.
All right. So the first thing is that it's simple and foolproof, because you remove the concern of overspending.
Right.
And we now can kind of celebrate each other's, opportunities of buying new things that we would like and
enjoying life.
Enjoy our life. We don't have to think about it. It's just, we've said it and we forgot it. We don't have to worry about it anymore. There's no surprises, right? So no more end of the month reconciliation meetings where you then realize after all this time that you still overspent. That is completely gone.
Right.
Yeah. 3, it's real-time budgeting, which we've already talked about and how valuable that is. It prevents overspending on the spot, which is nice. 4, it's given us peace of mind, right? So all of our bills are automated. We never have to worry about if they're going to, pull out more money than they promised they would. We'll talk more about that.
I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah,
that is one of my favorite features of Qube, but continue.
I get so excited about the bill cubes. It saved us a lot of money because of that. All right. And then 5, full control, right? So we can stop overcharges and theft before it happens. Mm-hmm. We've had instances of theft, and because of Qube Money, we've been totally safe. And I'll talk about that in a moment.
We've had instances of attempted theft.
Attempted theft. That's very good.
Yes.
That's a very good point. Maybe we should tell that story now, because I think it's exciting.
Yeah. So one time Matt went to the grocery store, or not to the grocery store, the gas station.
Yeah.
And I will say, this particular gas station around the corner from our house, I've heard of other people having this issue where there's, what do they call it, a skimmer?
It's a card skimmer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So apparently there was a card skimmer on this particular pump. The thing with Qube, as an example, say you go to the gas station, you pull up to the gas station, you open up the app, you click on your gas cube and you open it, and then you get out of your car and you swipe your card and you fill up your tank, right? As soon as that transaction is complete, the cube closes, and now there is a $0 amount on the card.
Yeah, so the envelope shuts.
There's
envelope
no more
money that can be removed.
There's no other envelopes that are open unless you have Qubeless on and you've got a certain amount in your Qubeless,
which we don't,
which we don't, and we didn't at the time. And so you swipe your card, you fill up your tank, your cube closes, you drive away. For most people, they're using a debit card or a credit card. And they swipe their card, and that skimmer takes that information, and now that skimmer can.
Well, that's exactly what happened. So yeah. So as I was driving, not to steal your thunder.
No,
I was the one doing it. So so yeah, to your point, like I swiped the card. I got back in your car. We're driving to the grocery store, and while I was driving, I got a couple notifications. I didn't check them because I was driving, and I'm not, that kind of guy that's going to check my phone when I'm driving.
But I was also getting the notifications.
Yeah. And so I got to the grocery store and I was able to check out the groceries. And while I was standing in line, I looked at those notifications, and it said that this ex-vendor tried to charge, I think it was like $700. I was like, what? And of course it didn't go through, right? Because the cube was closed and there's nothing that they can pull out of. And then I think like within 5 minutes, it was another $500 and $400, and it kept going down until just I think
To
it was
see
like
what was going to get
$10
approved.
to see what like the scammer.
It didn't go all the way down to like $1 and like 67 cents.
It was
or
trying
something.
to pull some. It was trying to pull
like
out
anything that they could
anything
get.
they could get, and every transaction did not go through. And so right away, you're not having to chase down a bank saying, "Hey, they stole my money." They did not take a single cent out of our bank account, and all I had to do was call Qube up and have them, send me a new card, which took a second. And during that transition to get a new card, I just used Apple Pay because Qube is good with Apple Pay and Google Pay. So, and since that point, I've actually started using the tap feature more often. So it was super simple, completely safe, and we don't have any fraud anymore, which is awesome. So that was the story for that one. Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that was really,
10
really
out of
fun.
10.
10 out of 10. It's been awesome. And, because our kids now use this too, I don't have to worry about, them getting scammed, which is awesome. So, and that's the last thing is instant transfers, right? So because our kids use Qube and they have their own debit cards, one of them is driving now. We front them, like $20 for gas a week because they have to get to and from school or whatever. And that is just like essentially a Zelle or a Venmo transfer instantly through the app, and it just makes it really, really easy. All right. Now let's talk about Qube Money and the spending cubes.
Okay.
So this is the view that we see every day.
Yes.
When I open up the app, and in fact, I can look at it right now. I just can do a quick swipe and I have all the categories available to me, just waiting to be spent on whatever it is we want, because we've already categorized how we want. And we'll show, I think, the audience, I think we have 17 spending cubes.
Okay.
All right. In fact, I'll just pull them up. So we've got, groceries, restaurants, date nights. We've got family entertainment, clothing, car maintenance and gas, which is one that we use a lot, home improvement, gift spending, babysitters, skincare, haircuts, all those kinds of things that we spend. And we also have
Buffer the Vampire Cube.
Which
I named it, and I'm really proud of my
clever.
Buffer the Vampire Cube. It's basically a cube that we put a certain amount of money in. I think it's maybe $100 a month or something like that. Yeah. And it's just a buffer cube. So that way we have a little bit of a extra cash that we can put into, a date night if we were spending a little bit more on a concert ticket, or, hey, we only have $70 saved this month for a babysitter, but we're going to need to spend more on a babysitter. So we would pull from that buffer cube. It just gives us a little bit more flexibility. And I love having a budget. I think it's really important, but it's important for me to also have flexibility. And so that's where the buffer cube came into play.
Yeah. That's like that 20% or whatever that we added on top, because when we did the actual sit down budget on an Excel spreadsheet and try to map that out, we didn't know what we didn't know,
right?
Because you can't see it. So what I used the buffer for initially was, what if we're going to spend something and we don't have it categorized? And so now what we do is every couple of months, I look at that Buffer the Vampire Cube transaction history and I see, oh, hey, you know what? We forgot about haircuts. We forgot about, whatever. And
let's build out a cube for that.
And then we'll make a cube for it.
And what's really cool about this is when we make a new cube, because we always add a little bit of a buffer and we have a few different sinking funds within the Qube app built out. If we need to add an additional cube for something, we typically don't have to change the transaction amount from Allied to Qube. We just absorb it somewhere else within it, whether it be like, okay, moving forward, only $75 a month are going to go to the Buffer the Vampire Cube because we have a new $25 bill.
Exactly.
Or what? Let's go ahead and see if we can spend $750 a month on groceries instead of $800 because we have a new $50 bill over here that I want to account for. So we can kind of switch things around and still remain at our agreed upon expenses for the month. Yeah. The other thing I love about Qube, because of that feature, because of the flexibility, because I can make as many bill cubes, savings cubes, spending cubes at will. Recently, we decided to try and bring our annual expenses down by, I think it was like $5,000 or something, just to kind of suck it in
Well,
a
when I
little
left my
bit.
job,
Yes,
right, is a
when you
perfect
left your job,
example, right?
that's when we were like, okay, can we
Yeah.
trim off $5,000 from our expenses annually? And it literally took maybe 30 minutes going through the cubes and just, I'm going
Yeah.
to pull this one down by $25. Hey, you know what? We don't need to put $200 a month into the Buffer the Vampire Cube. 100 is plenty. Let's pull a little bit back here.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have this bill anymore and it's just accumulating funds. Let's turn this one off and move that money into an emergency
Yeah,
cube.
just a little clean sweep.
And it was quick, it was painless. And after I ran the numbers and did the math, we were able to save quite a bit annually like that.
Yeah.
It
And
was so easy.
because we're living day to day out of Qube Money, we don't have to worry about the risk of overspending, even when I leave my job. Right. We just trimmed 20 or 30% off each cube, and that was it.
And like I did feel
we felt a pinch,
the pinch,
which is
but
natural.
it was easier to live the budget that we had created, even though it's a little bit more strict because we had the tool in place that we were already habitually using.
Yeah. And it allowed us to be open and honest about it. It's like, hey, you know, we're always now, when I first left my job, there were some categories that we hit zero sooner than we wanted to. And we were like, I really want to find a way to pull more into groceries, for example.
I don't want to be uncomfy.
If we can't help it, right? Like now, obviously, if you lost your job too, we'd pull back even further.
Right.
And that's our new
normal.
We
can do it.
We know we
have
can
to.
do it. It's exactly right. It gives us the confidence to make big changes and not have to stress it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. And then if I do make some more cash along the line, or you get promoted or whatever,
then we're going to bump that buffer cube up
because we've already covered all the retirement stuff. So then we just, it's just gravy at that stage. All right. So that's spending cubes.
Got it.
Okay. Let's talk now about the best feature, or one of the best features, bill cubes.
Yes.
All right. So bill cubes are essentially another tab within the app itself, and each one of them has a unique account number, debit card number, ACH number, whatever you want to call it. It has unique ones. And so when we create a new bill, say for Netflix or Amazon Prime, it will have its own debit card number that I type in on the website. It's unique. We will load it with just that amount of that bill, and we'll choose how often it gets, pulled out. We set it and forget it. But if, for example, let's say we're traveling, or we decide we don't want to use it or whatever, we can pause the app at any moment. Any bill cube can be paused at any moment. And the vendor cannot take the money out of our account.
It won't go through.
It gives us control of all of our transactions.
They're not going to get $1 out of me unless I have already agreed that they can have it. And exactly. I love that.
Yeah. So an example that I love to use, and I know I get getting ahead of myself, but internet is a perfect one. Like I'm not going to necessarily say the provider that we use, but like this provider's promotional period seems to end all the freaking time. And what we end up having to do, at least in the past, was have to look back and realize, oh shoot, they've been charging us, $120 over what we initially thought that we were getting charged for 5 or 6 months because we didn't know that the promotional period expired.
Right.
But now we set up the bill cube to be like, $60 for internet. And when they try to charge more, it will not clear. And all that happens is a notification will come on the phone and be like, do you want this vendor to charge $100 or $120? But like, no, I do not. And all we do is we just call them back up and renegotiate our promotional period.
It gives us the power and control to renegotiate a lower rate on that bill annually. We are literally doing this annually. And I know, a 1-time or even a 2-time or even a 5-time, extra $50 charge might not sound like a lot, but when you compound that against several of your bills,
listen,
it totally counts. Like it matters.
It's
I
the
love
bleeding.
It.
It's the bleeding. And if you have as many bills, like, because we're all living our lives, everything we pay for is a bill these days. And so you get to choose what you want to spend. You agree. It's like, it's a handshake contract that's ironclad. If someone else wants to take more of your money, you have to approve it first.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's amazing. Do you want to talk about how we've hacked meal planning?
Okay, so we have a certain vendor that we have a meal plan set up, and we really love it. But the issue is it's supposed to be a weekly service, but we've hacked it in such a way to where instead of doing a weekly service, which costs more to each particular meal
Yeah.
costs more when you have less of them. We buy a bunch of them and freeze them once a month. And then we turn off the cube.
We just pause the bill cube.
We pause the bill cube. So then the transaction won't go through for every single week. And it saves us, I don't know, $3 per meal. And
It saves us, hundreds of dollars in some cases over the year, right? Like it's
and
a lot
also
of money.
too, eventually what they'll do if the bill cube is paused and the transaction won't go through, they'll cancel the subscription, which is fine by me because obviously I'm eating.
Yeah.
But then they'll start sending me promotional emails like,
Coupons.
please come back.
They'll send you coupons.
Here's $100 in meals. I'm like, you got it.
And so when the good coupon comes on, we're like, oh, they're offering us, 10 free meals or whatever. We're like, okay.
Or 20 free meals.
We'll turn back on the cube and we'll restart up the delivery. It's genius.
Yeah.
It's genius.
I love this hack. I came up with this hack. I had like pencil math around this particular hack and I explained it to Matt one night over dinner and I think that you had stars in your eyes.
I just think it's so smart because now I use it for everything. Anytime there's a subscription service that you get, a percent off of something, great. I'll take a 10% or 20% discount by setting up a, subscription with you. No problem. And I'll pay it once. I'll get whatever it is I'm doing and there won't be any more money in that account.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get to choose if I really, really want a shaving subscription. Like I have control. I'm not giving them my junk and having to worry about if they're going to charge me in the future. It's ironclad and it's just so freaking cool.
It's not that I don't like the product. I like the product. I just don't like the cadence of the subscription that vendor has set up that then I have to go through a rigmarole to manage or turn off. And I've got to go through 6 different screens to cancel it or pause it. And they're like, are you sure? Are you sure?
Oh, I've got another one for you. Gym memberships.
Oh, yes.
All right. So I was part of a gym membership or a friend of mine from my last job, and I was using it, every couple of weeks or so. But then I fell off the wagon inevitably, and the gym required that I came in on a Tuesday afternoon to cancel the membership, to talk to their manager. And
it had to be like one specific day. I remember it being so ridiculous. I have never seen Matt be so red. He was so pissed.
Well, this was before.
You had to take time off work.
I had to leave work to go and cancel my gym membership on a Tuesday afternoon.
You had to take PTO to cancel this gym membership.
I was furious. But you know what? That was before Qube. So now that we have Qube, I don't have to do anything. I'll just pause the button. The worst thing they're going to do is call me up and be like, your gym membership's canceled. I'll be like, cancel it. And that was it. So it just saves me a lot of hassle, saves us a lot of hassle. So yes, love the Bill Cube feature. All right. And the last feature, because I know the episode's getting kind of long, but this is just, there's so many fun features in this app that I think it's just worth us talking a full episode about is the Goal Cubes, which we kind of mentioned earlier, but I'm going to read off some of our Goal Cubes.
Okay.
All right. So we have a Christmas Goal Cube.
Yes.
And we set a goal date on the app. So on the 25th, we want to have, I think we have $100 a month that goes to Christmas, for example. So our goal amount will be $1,200. But at any time during the year, if Black Friday happens, or we can just turn that cube on and spend from it. So Christmas, we have a closet remodel, which is not a high priority for us. I think we're putting literally $20 a month into a closet remodel. And that cube will be there for years until we feel like we've got enough.
We'll probably up the amount at some point.
At some point, just not a high priority. But we don't want to not think about it. So we're putting some money aside for it.
Right.
We have our healthcare expenses, which I love this cube because at any moment we are spending out of the healthcare cube, it creates a history of all those transactions.
And we can have an exportable report
exactly
for our HSA.
This is exactly right. Yes. Yeah. So because we had an earlier episode about HSAs, what we do is every month or every year, I will export all of our healthcare transactions from Qube Money. We'll tally them up and I keep my receipts. And so what that means is that at any moment in the future, we can pull that money out tax and penalty free because Qube Money already has it organized. Because we're proactive in saying this is a doctor's visit. This belongs from this cube. It just simplifies it. We have a Halloween fund because my lovely wife is a witch.
I love Halloween.
Yep. We have kids camps. We even have a new car cube in there that we put, I think, nothing at the $100 a month. We put $100 a month into a new car cube because at some point our cars are going to break down.
And a new car for us is probably a new to us used car.
It's going to be a beater for sure.
I love driving a beater. I'm proud of my beater.
I'm proud of my beater too. My Corolla is over 200,000 miles.
I wouldn't say that I'm proud of your beater.
Well, I mean,
that's another conversation.
That's fine. All right. We also have a new phone cube because, in a couple of years, inevitably one of us is going to need a new phone. And so we put, I don't know, $10 a month into that.
Well, okay. So the reason why we're putting $10 a month into the new phone cube is because we all have new phones.
At the moment, we
just spent out of that cube, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, and we all got new phones. Yeah. So, but we had accumulated quite a bit in there, and so we're good now.
Cool. All right. So the last two Goal Qubes we have travel, which we prioritize now, right? We try to put a couple $100 a month into that. And then within travel, we can also create like another cube for places we want to go. So we're trying to, go on either a trip to California or Hawaii or something. We can put another cube for that. So
we can break out we have multiple different travel cubes if we want to. Like, this is how much we want to save for this trip to visit your brother in Colorado. This is how much we want to save when we, go to the water park with my parents. This is how much we want to save when we go and visit your folks or what have you. So yes, we have a just blanket travel cube for random travel things that could come up. But then we also have specific travel sinking cubes that we're saving for because we're trying to be as conscientious and purposeful as possible. And I love it.
That's right. Okay. So in summary, Qube Money has helped us stop overspending and worrying about financial mistakes. We no longer have to worry about any of that, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Conflicts with my partner, right? We no longer have to have any type of money argument because we agree up front what we're going to spend, and that is what we spend. We prioritize the spending. And that's it, which is really nice.
We're playing footsie under the table right now.
It has helped us just not worry about it. It's off the table. It's under the table now, actually.
Are you blushing?
A little bit. All right. Then it's stopped unfulfilling or time-consuming budgeting methods.
Yeah.
I have not had to pull any exports into Excel for years, and it's just one less thing to worry about, which is awesome. No more missed opportunities like saving for family vacations or date nights, right? And then no more sneaky hidden vendor charges ever.
Nope, they're not going to get it.
Ever. And another example, which we've not done yet, but let's say we wanted to have like, Amazon Prime and Hulu and Netflix and all these shows, we can actually, in theory, rotate them. So like for a couple months, we're going to turn on Netflix Cube and then all the other ones will be off.
When the promo,
and the promo comes on. It's just control.
Yeah.
Which is super nice. And that's it. So to everyone listening, right, we're trying to encourage you to keep your budgeting simple and sustainable. And that's how we do it.
Yep. We, again, a huge fan of Qube. I love it. I think everyone should at least give it a try, especially if you're trying to get on the same page with a partner, especially if you're the kind of person who is more of a free spirit and wants to be better at budgeting, but you haven't really built up that habit. Qube is a great way to start reframing your relationship with your budget and building better habits towards your budget and with your partner. It helps you sort of ease into creating and maintaining that budget, having that visibility and that accountability in a way that is just really simple. So it's a great starting out point, but it's also a very robust tool. So you can really get into the weeds of these features and really get that much more particular about how you want to set things up. And I know we've gone over a lot of features today. Matt and I obviously are big fangirls of this app because it really genuinely will change your relationship with money. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions about Qube Money, please reach out to us on our website, CoastFICouple.com.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're interested in trying it, I know we talked a lot about the features and things. It's worked really well for us. I know that it's the only ad that we really show here because I truly believe in this product and I know it's going to be helpful for a lot of people out there. So if you want to give it a shot for yourself, we actually have an exclusive discount code. You can try the premium or the family plan for 2 months off by using our code COAST at checkout. And I promise you, you're going to really like it. So good luck.
Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.